Shortly after E3 2017, I had a Skype conversation with my co-host Ben, who was there. What follows is our long-winded conversations breaking down the various aspects of the convention. This is actually part 2 of a two-parter. If you haven't listened to the first half, I highly suggest you listen to that first, because we do a lot more talking about E3 in general, as well as our opinions on what the convention was before and what it is now. Anyway, I'll stop rambling and we'll get to it. So after Microsoft, we got Bethesda. And I'm by and large not the first person to say this. They didn't so much have a press conference as they did a movie showing.
Yeah.
They were like, you know what? We're just going to make this huge supercut of all the things we want to talk about and put it together, and you sit in a theater and we'll just show it to you.
So take this for the word of mouth that it is. But I remember I heard on the floor that basically a lot of the audience of Bethesda was just incredibly hammered because they gave out like free alcohol for a good few hours before the event itself. And so apparently it was like super rambunctious. And if you listen to it back, or if you watch the Bethesda conference back after kind of knowing that, you hear a lot of like winks and nods, like, this is going to be the best crowd ever. You guys are super rowdy. Like, it's going to be awesome. And like, so it felt like knowing that, it felt like a conference for the people in the audience, not so much the people watching.
All right.
Because between the two, you get two very drastic opinions. Like, people who watched it like online was like, it's just kind of lackluster. Like, there's nothing really here. It's kind of disappointing. Also, I don't know who the hell thought Elder Scrolls 6 was coming out. Like, are you kidding me? That's not going to happen. Not in the next 10 years. Not until Skyrim dies, finally.
Yeah, right. And it does not look like it's they announced not one but two things about Skyrim during that conference.
I'm really bummed out I didn't get to play a Skyrim VR, because the line for that wasn't terribly long, but you got to keep in mind, like, it's 10-minute demo sessions with VR.
Yeah.
So you have to put on the headgear, make sure it's fine. Because the last thing you want is people vomiting in your booth because of motion sickness issues.
Right. So, they showed off a bunch of VR stuff. Doom VR, Fallout VR, Skyrim, and if they can handle it well enough, sure, that's fine, cool.
So Doom VR is different than Skyrim and Fallout in the sense that Doom VR is doing the teleportation VR.
So basically, for those who don't know, teleportation VR is a way of handling VR environments where you move from space to space instead of, holding down a control stick and moving forward. And the idea, if I understand correctly, is that it keeps you from feeling like you're going to topple over, because the body in motion in VR is kind of like going to trick our stupid brains into thinking that we are in motion, but we're not. And it leads to all kinds of weird new problems.
Now, Doom handles this in-game by actually having, apparently, it's a device on the arm, on the character's arm, that like basically allows him to teleport. So they're explaining it in-game logic, which is interesting. I appreciate that little touch, because typically I do not care for teleportation VR because it really takes me out of the experience. Because when I was like, I don't really want to teleport. Like, I understand solving motion in VR is going to be an impossible task, but that is a great temporary solution, but I don't think it's the one that will really sell the common public on VR.
No, I don't think so.
That and the price point, but...
Well, even with before you even start considering games, the cost of entry for even the most humble of VR setups is not in a range that the average consumer is willing to spend still.
It's the price of a console. That's a lot to ask for not a huge library. It's basically like, I want to pay like $300 to vomit, potentially. Like, it's a hard sell.
Right. I think the most cost-effective solution right now is still like, not counting like the HTC the Google VR cardboard kind of solutions,
Yeah, ignoring
and stuff
all
like that.
phones and ignoring all that shit.
The having, I believe that the one of the best cheapest ways is the Sony VR, and even that's extremely cost prohibitive for a average user. And don't even get started on like an HTC Vive setup where you have like cameras mounted in a room, because then all of a sudden you have to have a whole room of space that you can potentially maneuver around in.
Oh Lord, like it's interesting to give a little bit of leeway into my life. Like at the school I go to, you have like they have 10 by 10 like spaces cornered off that you are not allowed to step into unless you're the team working on VR projects. Because if you move a camera, like their development is weird all of a sudden. Like playing the game is really hard. They can't test it very well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like you can't ask somebody, let's say politely, like if you're a young 16-year-old child and you happen to have VR, like moving the damn coffee table out of the living room is a pain in the ass.
Right.
Like you don't have the room necessary to do that. And dedicating a whole room, this is my VR room, means you're way too rich to be able to like have a grip on reality. Like there's a better way of wording it, but it's just one of those like you don't have a VR room. Like no one has that free space, and no one has that cash to just drop necessarily.
In certain respects, I think that we are far more likely to see good implementations of augmented reality before we see good cheap implementations of virtual reality.
Oh, absolutely, and that's a topic for another podcast, perhaps. But augmented reality is making huge leaps and bounds in the background.
You heard it here first, people. Ben and I are going to do an episode called AR, VR, and VOR.
You just gave me homework, is what you did.
What, you need to read a bunch of VOR now?
Oh no, the life I have. Damn tragedy.
All right, so outside of Bethesda's VR works, they announced their Skyrim Forge and pissed off all of their mod fan base.
I will look. I'm going to defend that.
No, I personally don't have any problems with it.
I'm gonna shit on the fans a little bit, not just ours, but everyone, including like rotating fans on ceilings. Here's the bit: like as mods or as developers, like you want to be compensated for your work, because a lot of people do mods to build portfolios. But that takes up your free time. Like it's really hard to sit there and be like, I dumped all this time and energy into this mod, and there's a donate button for a lot of mods. They don't get anything. Like, show some love to the developers is basically what it is. And it seems like Bethesda's approaching this one correctly. It's a weird ramble, but it's one of those things where it really upsets me when fans like, I shouldn't have to pay for this. And it's like, well, the reason you should pay for it is because that's how more stuff comes out. Like, support the developers who make the things you like, and our industry grows.
I completely agree with what you're saying.
It just like selfishness, and it's really bothersome that I feel like a lot of gamers don't know the development process and how much like literal sweat and tears and occasionally blood goes into stuff.
I mean, like we're dealing with a fractured game market where, AAA titles are getting more and more expensive to create, and as they should. The tech is getting ridiculous, but the smaller developers, or the like little artisan people who do small mods for a game, things like that, like you're still talking about hundreds of hours of development, even for a modest modification for a game.
Oh yeah.
And that equates to time is money. And if you're doing something like this and you can't make money off of it, then you're just doing it for the love of it, which is fine, except when you want to be able to support yourself and spend more time doing that thing that you love doing. If you can't afford to do it, then it happens less.
Right. You can't pay the rent in love. Like, as much as we'd love to, it's just not feasible. And I think a really good example of companies are now starting to support this, which is awesome. I'm glad Bethesda's taking this route. It's like, hey, like people love mods, like let's help them out, because they get it. When you sell on Bethesda, like the developers get a cut of that.
Now this is yet to launch, but I do know that with the Steam Workshop or whatever, the Team Fortress 2 mods that people could sell,
right.
There were some issues with people who would develop these, like they're since they're technically not employed by Valve. They're not privy to actually getting raw sales figures to find out like how much of this thing they actually sold. Are they getting paid well enough for it? There are some weird, sketchy things going on there. If Bethesda is upfront with the people that they have making content for them, that'll be great.
Sure, it's a topic I'm worried to go into because I don't want to pretend I'm a lawyer. I don't. I don't know what the contract is for Bethesda and their mod developers necessarily. But you're right. It adds a little bit of a sketchy avenue, but it's one of those things where I think companies are now turning around and realizing that, hey, if you support the people who love your game so much that they want to make it better, like maybe not shaft them out of stuff because word goes around fast. And I feel like marketing and advertising and just public relations are starting to figure that out pretty quickly, which is great. It's exactly what we need to happen.
Yeah.
The one thing that kind of bothered me about the mod announcement, it's not so much the overwhelming criticism, like, oh, we're paying for mods, like we're over that. The one thing that bothered me is that when they were showing the demo or not even the demo, the commercial, let's say, they showed like dwarven crab armor. It's like, are you making a callback to when it was really shitty 10 years ago?
Yes.
And I was like, is this what you actually expect? Because that's what's going to turn people off. Like, make mods that add new storylines or new enemies or new whatever. Don't show fucking crab armor.
Right.
Like, you're just kind of kicking yourself in the dick at that point. Like, what are you planning to accomplish there?
Like, I get that they were trying to make the joke because that was an actual like joke that had gone around. So much so that the model they showed of crab armor was modeled after the jokey illustration of them trying to sell people crab armor. Like, the two, it was very obvious what they were trying to do. It was just probably not in the best taste. Like, that's the sort of thing that you can joke about.
There's two things there. It's one of those like. It's one of those like, yeah, it's a callback to it, but people are still pissed off about that. That's still a bitter issue in the community. And the second part, it's obviously like very finger on nose. Like, we know what's up, but it feels like you stuck your finger in your eye so hard that you gouged yourself. Like, don't do that. Like,
this is a good opportunity to showcase how what you're doing will produce quality add-on content for a game that you released many years ago. And if it's not showcasing that to the best of its ability, it's not going to work.
Right. Like flashbacks are great if it wasn't a PR clown fiesta the first time. Like,
right.
That's all well and good, but that was not. They should know better. And that's the only thing. Like, I feel like I'm more criticizing this conference for their advertising than I am for the actual content.
Yeah.
Which, again, like I tied into before, like if this is a thing you're going to show to the public, be mindful of how that's going to last, because the internet doesn't forget anything.
Definitely. So let's move on to the next thing, which is also Skyrim on the Switch, and how it's so far the only thing that differentiates it from OG vanilla Skyrim is that it has support for at least one amiibo.
Look, I love Nintendo. I collect amiibos, but I never take them out of their packages because I actually like them as collector's things. This is dumb. This is real stupid. I'm sorry. Just for the sole notion that, like, okay, so Skyrim came out in 2011. There has to be a multiple number of Master Sword like mods already.
Oh yeah,
it's a small point, but it's just kind of stupid in my view. It's cute. It's cheeky. Nintendo probably forced them to do it. I'm like, for the people who love Skyrim, it'll be great to have it portable. Like, it's great to sit in an airport and play Skyrim, I suppose. Hey. Like, I played Skyrim for 100 hours in 2011, 2012.
Wait, Skyrim is one of those games, and the Elder Scrolls series in general as well, is a series of games where you say you're going to sit down for an hour and play, and then, next thing you know, 12 hours has gone by, which is great, if you're on an airplane and you're traveling from, like, Seattle to Tokyo.
I don't know if I can do 12 hours in a row anymore. Also, I'm older and not, like... Because it's one of the things where, yeah, I would like to see a new change in the formula, but, like, Skyrim is still selling like hotcakes, and until they have until Skyrim is on, like, the original Nintendo, like, I don't think they're gonna stop doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and why should they? Like, it's printing money. And just the idea that a game as massive as Skyrim is, yeah, we have Breath of the Wild. We're gonna ignore that for a second. A game as massive as Skyrim is, fitting on like a little Nintendo cartridge is kind of cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that seems like a really interesting proposition.
Oh yeah, like every time I actually look at one of the cartridges for the Switch, I'm like, this is where we're at now. Like, there's so much storage capacity on this thing that's roughly the size of my thumb.
It is really, just on a very quick note, it's really sort of disconcerting that you see Breath of the Wild on one of the tiny cartridges, and it's like, holy shit, that all fits on it. And then you see like 1-2 Switch on the same cartridge, and it's like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? Like, this is basically FMV and some like Waggle games. Sorry, yeah. I love 1-2 Switch. I actually do, but damn. But no, Skyrim's coming out on it. It's super. It looks cool. I may or may not buy it. I'm not buying it at $60. I'm going to tell you that for free. No. But when it comes cheaper, then we'll talk about it.
When it gets closer to release, if they would have to show some real killer feature for me to have that as a not discounted purchase. Considering that otherwise, I'm perfectly okay like playing the version of Skyrim I currently own.
Yeah, I'm okay with having Skyrim sit on my shelf and then looking at it as a thing that helped me fail college. So that's all good.
One last thing from Bethesda before we move on. They showed off a very long chunk of the introduction to Wolfenstein 2, along with, of course, like all the rest of their conference, they showed off a trailer. It looks great.
So like, every company has like a game that like they can do no wrong with. And for Bethesda, that's Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
Like that, they have nailed every single one of the Wolfensteins. Old Blood, it's New Blood.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? What's the very first one on the modern systems? It's old. What?
Names are. Hang on, give me 1 second.
Yeah, let's. How am I blanking on this?
Wolfenstein: The New Order, Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. Yes, and
The Old Blood. That's right.
I'm going to be doing some fun editing here.
Yeah, have fun with this one.
All right, so yeah, they showed off the new Colossus.
Yeah,
and they started in the best way possible, showing like some like period style black and white television. But it's clearly a United States which has been conquered by the Nazis, and like the world building that they've done with this, it in a lot of ways, from what I saw, what they had to show, made me think of like a Fallout kind of game, like something that feels like the story that Fallout would want to tell, except the world isn't destroyed; it's just taken over by the Third Reich.
Right.
And that sounds like a fun world to inhabit for a video game. Like, it's going to have all the zany, gross out, blow up people crap that you expect from a Wolfenstein game. And you're just going to be, it's a cool whole new scenario.
I'm just saying, like, a trailer where you drop acid, like, already has my attention.
That's right. I completely forgot about that. Oh man. I'm pretty stoked to see how that's implemented.
This is gonna be a great game. Like, I'm never ever the person who's like, yeah, like I don't buy games on launch anymore, just because I feel like I've been burned too many times, or quite frankly, like I just been too busy to do it. Like, this would be one of those exceptions where like, yo, I want to play as a dude who like lives in the U.S. taken over by Nazis and is on acid and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, that just seems like the catalyst for disaster, and I love it.
Now, a lot of people who were doing the coverage, I didn't actually notice this footage, but a lot of people were talking about how it looks like BJ Blazkowicz is in a wheelchair for a part of the game.
Yeah.
Like, he's running gunning, except he's in a wheelchair, and that sounds hilarious.
I will say, as a floor note, that Wolfenstein, at least in the hall that they were at, excluding Nintendo, were the only ones who were thematically consistent, where to play the game you had to walk through like an old diner to get to it. Like, they built an actual diner in the hall, which was amazing. And that lineup was apparently 3.5 hours, from what I understand. The
thing they're missing there is they needed to have cheeseburgers and milkshakes available for people.
So apparently for the pre-conference, for the select few, like media and other people who got to go to the pre-conference, they actually gave out mugs of ale to people. And like before they served it to him, they slammed the mugs on the counter so it'd be all really foamy and spill everywhere. So they like even like when they invited people with alcohol, like they kept it thematic, which is awesome. Like good job.
Yeah. Put on a show.
That's what it was. Like it's a show that was kind of lackluster to the internet, but a show that was in person was apparently fucking dope, which is great. I wasn't part of it though.
Yeah, I wish I could have been for that.
I wish I was successful.
Do you have any final thoughts about Bethesda?
No, Bethesda was pretty like clean and clear. Like they had strong notes, but again, same thing. Like performance for the public was not the strongest thing ever. Nothing really to report from the show floor either. It was pretty much like, hey, like you like your game, play it. There's no like really fancy tricks, no surprises, nothing really to talk about.
All right. So moving on, we have Ubisoft. Ubisoft. I've never known.
I say Ubisoft.
I say Ubisoft as well. So they had some announcements. They had a new Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Origins.
The Witcher of Assassin's Creed.
You know, I used to love the Assassin's Creed franchise, but they had like the one that burned it for me was Assassin's Creed 3. Like that game.
I was in the same boat.
That game was buggy garbage.
I got Assassin's Creed 3 on launch, steel case and everything. I got that shit on launch and played it for like 5-ish hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, I'm over it. Like, this is not great. Because I feel like you didn't even play the main character until, what, like 4 hours in? 3 hours in? Something like that?
Something like that.
Pretty good amount of time to not... Like, it's not an introduction scene. It's one of those, like... I don't know. It felt bad.
I mean,
and then
I don't have a problem with the fake out because that's kind of like in the same vein as like a Metroid style game where it's like you start off as a fully formed, this is who you are kind of person. And
sure,
then
do it better though.
Yes. And by do it better, for me, I played it on the Wii U when the Wii U came out.
Okay.
And that wasn't that game was already out, I believe, by then.
Oh, it was way out by that time.
But the version they had on the Wii U was buggy as crap. Like,
oh, don't worry, the version on launch, because I got it on 360, that was also buggy as crap.
Like, I remember being in Boston at the first part of that game, and the faces of all the women didn't render. So you just had these bonnets walking around, floating eyes and teeth, and it's like some sort of like gore, like body horror crap going on.
For me, it was one of those like because you played Boston at the early part. But the issue is that like the first, like I love Assassin's Creed 2. We can talk about Brotherhood and Revelations a little bit. I loved it because like the sense of scale was awesome. Like you get to climb high shit and you can explore the city. Like for Assassin's Creed 3, you just kind of like, here's some woods. Like you felt like a fucking flying squirrel. Like there's just really nothing there. And I was just disinterested. And I played a little bit of Black Flag. And I had the same consensus as everyone else. Like, hey, the piratey stuff is kind of cool. The other stuff of just going to like random Galapagos Islands or whatever the hell it was, just felt boring. Like it was not fun at all. Didn't play Unity because I was over it at that point. And then apparently Origins is basically like, hey, like we're Witcher, but not. We're just not gonna say we're Witcher because that's we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because then people will play Witcher, because that's a really good game. Play Witcher. Play Witcher.
Everybody, go play Witcher.
Actually, play Witcher.
Assassin's Creed Origins, though, it looks like I don't know anything about the story, but it looks like it takes place in Egypt, and it true to its name, it is the origins of the Brotherhood of Assassins.
Right. What's apparently, from what I understand, like there's no references to Abstergo. There's no reference to like the meta plot of stuff.
Oh, cool.
Which is great because I hated the meta plot.
Oh, I actually did play all the way through 3, and the thing that killed it, like I was able to force myself through the bugs, all the problems, the lackluster environments. The thing that killed it for me was just that the story just went completely off the rails.
Oh yeah,
like the whole Abstergo thing and like the gods in modern day, and no matter what, you're screwed. And it's like, I'm not into this anymore.
Look, I will defend Assassin's Creed 2 to the death, but even the ending of that was like, come on, man. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, okay, spoilers, super spoilers. If you don't want spoilers for Assassin's Creed 2. The fact that you get to like have a fist fight with the Pope is fucking awesome. That was dope. But the reason that we were fighting about is stupid. Like this magical atom or this magical apple that is supposedly like a key to like the Abstergo. Look, it's dumb. It's forgettable because it's convoluted sci-fi with like awesome action adventure assassin-y crap.
Yep.
It did not mix. They need better writers. It was just not a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm glad they tossed Abstergo. I hope they continue to toss Abstergo forever. It just makes sense to keep it in the bloodline, but don't mention like the sci-fi crap about it. Don't care. Don't give a fuck.
Yep. All I care about is being a parkour assassin who can incite a riot and then disappear into the crowd.
Yep. Which is not new to the game. But
no, but I mean, like that's why I like those games. That's why people like those games.
Yeah, I'm very perhaps controversial. I really loved the Assassin's Creed multiplayer for Assassin's Creed. I think it was Revelations. At it. I really loved it, but a lot of people didn't. But I want that game to come back. Like that was a fun, like, make that standalone. That game was cool.
Well, I'm okay with that idea. So moving on, Far Cry 5. I know pretty much dick about this game.
I got to play a bunch of it, so I can tell you a little bit about it. If you want me to take the lead on it.
Go for it, Ben.
So the long and short of it is that basically you're in this town in Montana, or this area in Montana, which has been taken over by religious zealots who believe that the end of the world is coming. And as a consequence, they're just kind of wreaking havoc. Like, that reason is kind of unclear, but, you know, whatever. And you're these other people who think that havoc is not cool, and you don't want to do that. And so you go around and basically do Far Cry things. And to be fair, like, Dawn and I are both really excited about this game. And it's part of it because of the political turmoil that we're in now, where it feels very thematic, like thematically appropriate. Where you kind of see like these small religious groups kind of like rising up with guns and crap. Like it feels very appropriate.
A land divided.
Yeah. And it's one of the things where there's already been a very tiny controversy about it. It's like, well, why are all the bad people white? And it's like, because you live in Montana and you're assholes. Like, it's not about you being white. It's about you being an asshole.
Yeah, that's a whole other controversy that I really don't want to get into today.
No, we're not going to touch it. But it's one of those like, I'm glad they're not doing like Tibet, and I'm glad they're not doing like, oh, I'm a random American dude vacationing, and oh no, like I got caught up in some shit. Like this hits home. Like, not in a dramatic way. Like, I'm not going to reinvent my life over this. But it's at least, like, it reflects the homelands a little bit. It's unrealistic. Don't get me wrong. Like, if this ever happened, like, the National Guard would be in there in, like, maybe 8 hours and just wipe that shit clean and call it a day. But, I don't know. As far as the gameplay, they took what they did from Far Cry Primal, which is, like, you get to have animal buddies, basically. And they gave you a dog called Boomer. And Boomer is like basically fucking, what's the dude from Splinter Cell? Sam
Fisher.
Sam Fisher. He's basically the Sam Fisher of dogs.
Okay.
Where you could basically like stick him on any enemy and just murder him without a problem. Assuming they're not in eyesight or not in like reasonable eyesight. But you can send them in towns and like scout for you.
Oh, yeah. So
and you can figure out where enemies are and do all that sort of stuff. If he kills an enemy with a gun, he'll bring you back the gun.
Yeah, I saw footage of that.
It was interesting when I was actually in queue to play it. They had a giant screen, like probably 100 feet across, if nothing else. And they actually played the demo of the game that I was about to play. Like they were doing the E3 or the E3 presentation on Twitch. And I was like, hey, on this game, if you go to the left, you can do this thing. I was like, oh, well, when I play the game, I'm going to go to the right and not do that because I just saw him do that, and that's not interesting anymore. There's stuff like that. They also had like you could control like this person who flies a plane and can drop an actual missile on a town, which is interesting. It's a Far Cry game. It feels a little bit overpowered. Like, you as a player character should not have the abilities that you do, but apparently you just do.
Right. That's like any Like that the one-man army theme is definitely a part of the wheelhouse for a Far Cry game.
Oh, this game is definitely one man army, like to a T. Like I think out of all the games I played for Far Cry, like this is definitely one of those like, yeah, I can take out an entire state, not a problem. Like that's kind of what it feels like.
And it sounds like they nailed it. Being at least the demo you played, it sounds like it was fun.
Oh, it was definitely fun. Like I will, like look, I can give all the criticisms I want about Ubisoft the game because Assassin's Creed Origins, The Crew 2.
Mm-hmm.
This game, like it's Ubisoft the game. You have a map, all the waypoints, you do all that crap. It's still fun though. It's still just like reckless, stupid fun.
Right.
I'm not looking to have my mind blown. This is not a philosophical game. It's one of those like I just want to shoot bad religious zealots.
So let's talk a little about my mind being blown.
Sure.
There's a Rabbids game coming out that actually looks good.
Yo. Oh, I have a lot to say about the floor about this point, but go ahead and take it off.
Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. This game came out of nowhere, and it immediately became one of the most anticipated non-first party titles for a Nintendo console for me.
Yeah.
It's softcore XCOM essentially.
No, it's exactly what it is actually.
Like you have the Rabbids are in the Mushroom Kingdom, and there's a blend of the two things that actually it's two different flavors that somehow work together. And you have Mario and Rabbids and other Nintendo franchise characters running around and just having these turn-based battles, and it looks great. Like
this. To me, the Rabbids are the minions of Despicable 3, but less annoying.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, it's weird because you would think this is the most unusual mashup ever, but honestly, the Rabbids feel like a new enemy type in Mario. Like, it doesn't seem so out of place as many people feel it is. It's definitely shocking, don't get me wrong, but it's not out of place, in my view.
The thing about this game is it looks like a game that you can tell when you're looking at it that this was a game that Ubisoft wanted to make. This wasn't something they were asked to make. This is something they just wanted to do. And they said as much. Like the guy who made it, the guy whose idea originally was, apparently he got the okay from Ubisoft before getting the okay from Nintendo.
Right.
And they just whipped together a prototype and showed it off to Miyamoto. And that's how that stuff doesn't happen anymore. That's how crazy it is. Like
that's a game designer's like dream, and not just the Miyamoto part, but just like, hey, like I built this prototype and I'm going to show it to the person I wanted to show it to, and it worked.
Oh yeah, it's like the game development version of like making some fan art and showing the person that it's of too. Like,
oh yeah,
I made this thing. Please tell me you like it.
Oh, I'd pee myself so hard. Like, oh my lord.
No, I am genuinely interested in getting this game. This might be a day one purchase for me. I'll probably be able to hold back a little bit because these days there's always like day one patches and stuff.
Sure.
But from what I saw, it looks like a fun game that will actually live up to the idea of the Switch being a thing that you can take with you anywhere and just drop in, play some of this game, and then go back to whatever it was you were doing.
Well, that's what XCOM is really like. That's what XCOM is really good at, because you can have like encounters that are somewhere between like 5 minutes and 45 minutes, depending on how bad you play it.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that, like, hey, like I'm on a Switch and I have 10 minutes to go, I can just do this random thing. Yeah. We have no idea like how the encounters are going to work necessarily, how that's all going to boil down. But the fact that it's just this really I have no words for it. It's a surprising, like, wonderful fusion of two ideas. And it's basically like XCOM for kids. And I'm an XCOM for adult person, but fuck me if I won't play XCOM for kids. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get down on some, like, Apples to Apples Junior occasionally. It's fine.
Yeah, like, sometimes you have to, like, stop playing Cards Against Humanity because it's a terrible game anyway. Like, not even just for the content, it's a terrible game. But no, like I was so shocked about how many, like, because when you walk past each like section for each game at the floor on E3,
mm-hmm.
You had like they had like a little like placard, basically just giant placard, like if you wanted to put like best of whatever stickers on stuff, like Mario plus Rabbids like got a shit ton of best of E3 things.
Oh
Like
yeah.
shockingly.
Well,
And it's one of the because it's shocking because no one expected it.
it was not the Mario game you expected to see.
No, not at all. Like everyone wanted to play like Mario Odyssey and all that other crap, but like people wanted like, yo, like Mario Rabbids is really cool. Like there's no getting around that.
Yeah, it's so cool because in our modern world, it's so easy to be cynical of something like that, and it just got love from every outlet, every single news outlet that I saw talking about it. It was just they were on board. They were like, "This is a fun game from what we played, from what we've seen. This is gonna be great. I hope they don't screw this up."
I don't think they will. I don't think Nintendo will let them.
No,
frankly.
no, that's Nintendo is very protective of their IP and who they let use it. There's no way that this is going to be there's no way that this will be bad on an objective level.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things like if you don't like rabbits so much that you can't get around it, then sure, maybe not for you. But if you even pretend to love games, as like if rabbits aren't your problem and you love games, like this is one like you should probably buy this on launch
Yeah. All right.
because this is cool.
So, any last words for Ubisoft?
Actually, yeah, I didn't talk to you about this in the pre-planning, but South Park,
Oh
the
yeah.
Fractured But Whole,
Oh yes.
is oh my lord. It's great. They're actually building a proper RPG, it looks like, which is fantastic. I don't know if you got to saw gameplay footage of it or not.
I haven't seen new gameplay footage. I saw some a couple months ago.
So, I don't know if they had it a couple months ago, but they're doing basically like a grid style RPG. Where at least the demo fight that they had where you're fighting in a strip club, of course, was a 4x4 grid. And a lot of their moveset, like they took away. Like, did you ever play the first one or know anything about the first one?
I did play the Stick of Truth.
Okay, cool. Which I liked it a lot. It was, but you'll agree with me that it seems like a really easy RPG. Like, there's no real strategy involved once you get to a certain point.
Oh no, that game was definitely all about seeing if they could pull off a video game that felt like a South Park story.
This game seems to switch that, where they're actually taking advantage of like RPG tropes. Like you can like encumber people, you can shock people and freeze them, and like you can do all these like very strategic things that limit their movement and limit. It's a very position heavy RPG, which I think is really fantastic.
So it's like
they're putting the game in South Park, which is like awesome.
So it sounds like from your description that they're making a Final Fantasy Tactics, but a South Park edition.
Thank you. I was struggling to come up with a name that would sound familiar. Yes, Final Fantasy Tactics is great because I was going to say Divinity, but that's not even close to true. But yeah, so they're doing that, and it's fantastic. It seems like a really great game. If you are not comfortable with very controversial topics, then probably not your swing. I'm trying to remember because they showed a little bit of it in the Ubisoft bit. I forget if they showed gameplay or not. I don't remember because a lot of the E3 is blurring with the actual conference that I watched.
That's fair. I don't recall.
So at the E3 they had a demo where you're at a strip club as Captain Diabetes and New Kid. And eventually these two drunk guys, like hella drunk guys, like think you're strippers and you have to give them lap dances. And there's a lap dance mini game, which is just fantastic. And you have to basically you keep grinding on them and doing all that sort of shit. It's a long mini game. And you have to keep farting in their face at every opportunity you can. And that's how the fight triggers. But yeah, and then it's super great. It feels like they took all the criticism from. Trust me, I get it. They took all the criticism from the first game, where it's like, yeah, you basically play for the story. There's no really RPG difficulty to it. This one actually feels like there's a lot of thought behind it, and it's one that I'm super looking forward to. As someone who's like a little bit crass on like humor can go too far in one direction. Or the point where just kind of being grotesque for grotesque's sake. This one seems to like really like kind of straddling that line, which I'm really excited for. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, and the thing I like about the Fractured Butthole is that they announced this last year, but it was that if you purchase the game, you also get the Stick of Truth. Like that is a pack-in bonus. So you get the first game if you buy the second game. And I love it when companies do that because
you might as well, right? Like
as I mentioned earlier, like even if it's not important to get you caught up to speed with what's going on, it still feels good.
This is one of, like, in that case for the package deal, like this is one of the games where you should definitely play Stick of Truth first, because playing Fractured But Whole first and then going to Stick of Truth is going to feel like a major downgrade. Because while I didn't have a chance to play it myself, seeing the very elaborate detail that they're putting into the battle mechanics is actually really nice. So that's one I'm actually looking forward to as a proper RPG with a little bit of lewdness thrown in.
Yeah, sounds good. Anything else?
That is the only other thing I can think of. I'm trying to think of any floor notes, and there wasn't a ton. It was just like Ubisoft was a huge booth. It was crowded all the time. They were always giving presentations. It was just a super fun quick fact. You got Ubisoft RFID bracelets.
Okay.
And every time you played a demo, you got Ubisoft points.
Oh,
and
no.
you can redeem those Ubisoft points for food at a food truck.
Oh, okay, good.
Which was basically, they were pimping Far Cry 5 like a motherfucker.
No,
I thought they were going hard on it.
I thought you were going to say that you were going to be able to redeem them on Uplay, and I'm like, oh no.
I cannot confirm or deny that's still not the case.
Because they really want people to use that. And
yeah, Uplay's, I think I don't know if they're giving up on it necessarily, but it'd be great if they did.
I don't like it. I'm not saying that the world doesn't need, that Steam doesn't need competition, or Blizzard or whoever, but man, I just don't. I've never cared for Uplay.
Oh no, like Uplay made it really difficult to play Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon for no reason.
Yeah. So moving on from that to hopefully more interesting than the politics of Ubisoft and their software. Let's move on to Sony and the politics of their software.
The Sony conference of here's our third-person stealth action adventure game.
Which one was that?
The conference.
All of
them.
Whole conference.
Are you kidding me?
All right. So first note I have here is Monster Hunter World, which is definitely important to bring up up front because this is the first time in a long time that there is a Monster Hunter game that is not coming out on a Nintendo platform.
Yeah.
This is all just rumors. I don't know if this has been confirmed or not, but it sounds like that this was actually like Capcom made a deal with Sony that they didn't care about what platforms the game came out on as long as it wasn't a Nintendo platform. So that's why the game is coming out on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and PC.
Yeah, it's I played a bunch of Monster Hunter, or the last one on the 3DS. I sank a bunch of time into it until my file corrupted, and then I never went back to get up to it because replaying Monster Hunter is very frustrating.
Oh yeah, that is a game that requires a long time investment.
Oh yeah, it does.
And if your game gets corrupt, that's the sort of moment where it's like, I don't think I need to do this again.
Yeah, it's not your jam. It's not what it is, but it was really notable. I think that's really going to do some damage to the Switch because I won't lie, I really wanted Monster Hunter to come out on the Switch. That would, not that I feel like my Switch purchase is not justified because they have a lot of good stuff coming up, which we'll talk about. Mm-hmm. But if Monster Hunter came out for the Switch, I don't think I would play another console for a very long time. Well, because normally I'm a Nintendo PC person. That's all I am. I don't really need much else. But now that Monster Hunter is coming out on different systems, PS4 it is, I guess. Or PC.
PC. It's not going to be out. I believe the PC version comes out later.
It always does.
Yeah. But that's eventually not going to matter much because from what I understand, Microsoft, their whole Windows Xbox One initiative, eventually you'll just be able to buy Xbox One games and play them on your Windows PC. So
I'm not buying shit off the Windows 10 store.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say that.
So although the Switch isn't getting Monster Hunter World, it is getting Monster Hunter Double X. We'll get back to that in a bit, though.
Sure.
Next on the Sony docket was the remake of Shadow of the Colossus, which I am happy is coming out, but at the same time, I can't get over the fact that this is now the third re-release of Shadow of the Colossus, I think.
That's one of the cases where we're like, hey, like, do we need a game that prints money? Then let's do Shadow of the Colossus. Fantastic. End discussion. Like, and people will still buy it because look, Shadow of the Colossus is a good game in its own right.
Yes. That being said,
but how many times are you gonna play this fucking thing?
Well, and the one thing I will give them props for is at least it's not just a port of the HD re-release. It is all new models, higher quality, like it's almost like a remake of from the ground up of the game. Or at least an asset refresh of it.
Yeah. At the same time, though, it's one of those, like, how many times?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, this is probably just a personal opinion, but, like, if I want the nostalgia feeling for playing an old game, I'll play the old game on the old system.
You're not alone on that. But I understand situations. Here's my take of that situation. Like, I agree, assuming I have the system. But if I don't have the system, that's when things like this are kind of cool. But at the same time, I don't feel like you should be paying a new game cost for something like that.
Fair.
Because you can buy a PlayStation 2 and a copy, like a Player's Choice Edition or whatever, Greatest Hits, Shadow of the Colossus, for probably less than buying a copy of it for the PS4.
Absolutely.
Assuming it's new game cost.
I have my own opinion. Like, games need to be above $60. I'm sorry, but they do. As far as developing is concerned, like $60 is just too generous as a price. But that's a different podcast and probably a different debate for a different time. But yes, you're correct. That, yeah, if you never played it before, absolutely play it. If you've played it before, how much is it worth to you? Like, do you have a tattoo of Shadow of the Colossus on your body? In which case, you should get a PS4 and play it. Well, then if you don't, then, maybe.
That raises a whole other question, though. It's like, if you haven't played Shadow of the Colossus before, are you going to buy it on the PS4? Like, because I don't understand really who this port is for. Is it just for people who just is it just for those people who would have the tattoo?
Well, it's a whole bit, but it's one of those things where, like, hey, like, it feels kind of like a, here you go, like, take it, enjoy it, sort of thing. Like, I don't think it's going to make or break their bank account necessarily, but it's just one of the things where, like, we can do it, so why not? We're Sony.
I saw the new footage of the God of War game that they're making. I don't have much to say about it other than it looks like God of War and it looks fun.
Yeah, it looks like it's Dad of War and it's great.
Yeah. Like, in fact, they could probably call it Dad of War and I would still think it was great.
I'd buy it, honestly. I'd be all into that. Not a huge God of War fan, but like, yeah, maybe this one will, like, really entice me in.
So Sony closed out their press conference with the cheeky little thing. Now, here's an actual exclusive that you will only get on the PlayStation 4. And they showed off Spider-Man.
Right.
It looked fun. It looked good. Like, from what I saw, it looked like what you would expect from a Spider-Man game plot-wise. What is going to make or break that game is how does the web slinging feel.
Like, so apparently, from what I've researched on this, apparently the web slinging and all of that is actually physics-based and not animation triggered. Which will be really interesting because that means, like, that's bug central. Because physics debugging is way harder than animation debugging for sure.
Definitely. And in video games, when something goes wrong with an animation, the animation finishes, you go forward. When something goes wrong with the physics simulation in a game, weird stuff happens.
A lot of weird stuff. That's how games break. Like, that's where you have memory issues. That's where things start to slow down. Like, it gets to be a shit show really quick.
So I'm hoping that the engine that they're using for this game, and I'm hoping that it's Sucker Punch that's working on this, right?
Yes.
I'm hoping that Sucker Punch has some like freaking crackerjack physics programmers. So
I can't imagine that they're gonna go for that and then drop the ball
like
entirely too hard on that.
like this doesn't strike me as something that you'd want to just purchase the physics middleware for. Like
Right.
you don't want to just like get the Havoc engine and throw
Oh
that
no,
in your
not in
game.
this case. Like I admit, I'm not the hugest fan of hugest fan of Spider-Man. um, yeah, it's one of the things where it's not for me, but a lot of people have excitement for it, and I'm curious to see how it turns out. I forget, is that game coming out this year, or is that slated for next? I don't remember.
I don't remember. I would imagine that the original plan was probably to target the window for when Spider-Man Homecoming was coming out.
Yeah.
Either that or probably shortly after, like after its theater run. I will have to double check on that though. So I'm not going to say anything definitive in this podcast.
Good call. Don't like edit over yourself.
So, any other opinions on Sony? Like,
So the only thing I wanted to give an opinion on was Detroit.
yeah.
David Cage's new game, but I can't because, look, for the fuller perspective, Sony made it damn near impossible to play any of their games because they made you download an app on your phone that made you schedule a time to play their games. But the problem is that people click the button faster than you do. And so it opened up for all 3 days. It opened up at 9 o'clock in the morning and 1 p.m. For the entire day. So from 9 p.m. to 1, you could book those slots, and then from 1 to 5 or 6, you get to book those slots.
Right.
If you didn't book those slots, you didn't play the game. End of discussion.
Not a terribly bad idea, but poor implementation.
It was really well. It's bad because a lot of, especially the 1 p.m. slot, people are in the conference hall where they have shit cell phone reception.
Right.
You can't do anything.
Anyone who has tried using a cell phone at a packed conference hall knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was really rough because you saw a lot of the PlayStation queues look empty as hell. It's like, hey, like, how about I play your game? You're like, no, you didn't download the app. And I was like, I did, and you wouldn't let me in the damn thing to do it.
Yeah.
It was really frustrating.
Like,
So I don't have much to say about Detroit, except for the fact that David Cage games make me super nervous. And hopefully, apparently, he has an editor for this one, which maybe make it a good game. But his last 4 attempts at a good game has let me down significantly.
all right.
I hate Heavy Rain. I'm just gonna say that. I fucking hate Heavy Rain.
No,
everyone loves that game. It's shitty.
You know, there's a lot of divisive opinions on Heavy Rain. I like what they were trying to do. I don't like the execution.
God, if we could have a 2-minute, like a 2-hour just rant on Heavy Rain on this channel, I would co-host that forever.
Well, you know me. I'm always happy to let someone rant for an hour.
2 hours.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, fine.
So,
Continue.
moving on from Sony, we have Nintendo.
Nintendo.
Last but certainly not least, at least not in my opinion. I am not going to completely upfront. Everyone who knows me knows I'm a huge Nintendo fan, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. So this was the one that mattered most to me.
What a controversial opinion.
No, you know, I know a lot of people, even people who like Nintendo, sometimes they say that they like it, but they do it in like kind of an ironic way where it's like, yeah, I know it's like for babies, but I like it. And it's like, you know, anyway.
I don't care if it's for babies. It's a good for babies. Like,
yeah, no, I like Nintendo as a company. I don't always agree with the choices they make, but from what I took away from their video conference, their Treehouse Live conference and all that, I was happy. I walked away. I saw a bunch of things that surprised me, things that I was not expecting. Like, for instance, let's start off right up front. Rocket League on the Switch.
Okay, so all summer I've been playing Rocket League like hell. I love Rocket League. I am complete shit at Rocket League, but I love Rocket League. And the idea that I can take this portably will mean I would never spend time with my wife ever again.
Now,
Like, I love this game so much, and I'm so glad it's crossplay too.
Yeah,
it's not just Nintendo Switch people; it's crossplay.
So the best thing about that, for people who don't know, is that means it doesn't matter how many people buy a Switch version of the game, as long as people are playing Rocket League on whatever platform they're on. Not except Sony, I think.
Sony has decided to not do that, which is a really big, I think, misstep in there.
Yeah, so there will always be people playing this game as long as there are Rocket League players. That's great. I am excited for that. Also, like, the thing that surprised me about how I was excited was not that I was excited for it, but the fact that everyone else was too. Because you see it with games like Skyrim and that, where people are like, oh god, it's coming out on another platform. They show us something new, or Nintendo's got another port of another game. I didn't hear any of that about Rocket League. Everyone was just like, Rocket League on the Switch? Yes, this needs to happen yesterday.
Rocket League gets esports potential. Like, that shit's being shown on ESPN. Like, when I was at, true story, when I was at the conference, as we were leaving the building, like, they were showing Rocket League on ESPN. Like, that shit's becoming huge.
That's crazy.
It's so good. It's what video game nerds want, which is like a fucking awesome video game, and it's what like real sports fans want, so like a game that they can kind of understand, which basically it's fucking car soccer.
Yeah.
And it's awesome as shit.
Like,
I love Rocket League.
They have other modes of play, but who cares? Those other modes of play aren't as fun as
they aren't as fun, but they're still pretty dope.
They're okay. But
no one's gonna play them competitively, but they're still super dope.
Car soccer is where it's at.
It's great. I love Rocket League. This announcement alone is like, yo, Nintendo, like, I got you. Like, that's dope.
So then they also showed off, new Kirby game, new Yoshi game. I'm sure they'll have real titles at some point. They both looked great. Just a solid Kirby game where it's a side-scrolling platform with drop-in, drop-out multiplayer. Cool. I'm down.
What I feel like this whole bit with the Kirby and Yoshi games were is like, because I feel like the Wii U had a really late start. It's like, hey, we also will have a Kirby and Yoshi game, but it's also gonna be like 3 years into the Wii U, so we're not gonna like worry about it. But like this one's like, no, we care about our main characters. We have these IPs. We're going to use them. Also, and I feel like Nintendo Switch is trying to be, or Nintendo is trying to be like, hey, like we care. Like we are dumping all this crap at you. And you're gonna love the Switch, I promise. It's not the Wii U 2.0, I swear.
Also, I'm getting the impression that Nintendo's turnaround on game creation is gonna be a lot faster now that they are. It sounds like in-house they're using Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
Which means that there's a lot that they don't have to worry about anymore. Like it's out of their hands to maintain that old ass engine that was built on top of the Mario 64 engine.
The only thing that could have just like canceled this conference altogether if they announced the Super Mario 64 remake. I'm like, nope, it's over. We're done. Like that's it.
Well, they did the next best thing, and we'll get to that in a moment.
Close. Yeah.
So they teased Metroid Prime 4. Not a date, not anything, just Metroid sounds and a logo.
I admit wholeheartedly that this didn't impress me too much. Just because, like, hey, like you showed the number 4, like, awesome, and we all got it.
Right. And there has yet to be a legitimately bad Metroid Prime game. I think 3 is the weakest of the trilogy, but
I agree. Yeah.
The part of that's because they were still really trying to shoehorn in those motion controls, and they were trying they took away like the seamless world, and it switched to like switching from location to location, and it wasn't for me.
Nintendo had a problem about knowing when to put Old Yeller down, and Old Yeller's motion controls in this case. But I feel like with this, like, yes, the Switch supports motion controls, obviously, but I feel like they're kind of putting that on the wayside, where it's like, yeah, we have them, but we also know you want to do it this way, and they're making that the big thing.
Now that being
so, I'm really confident about this.
That being said, this is something I heard. I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but it sounds like Retro is not making Metroid Prime 4. It sounds like Nintendo is tackling it in-house.
Which I'm super cool with.
I'm okay with it.
I have nothing against Retro. I think Retro's great.
No, that's actually where I'm concerned, is that like Retro, they were good. What's the word I'm looking for? They were good. uh, not bastions, but
Yeah.
they were good at holding on to that property. Like they treated it well.
No, I
So
don't think they did badly at all. I think in my mind, and it's a little bit of a exaggeration, but in Nintendo's case, if you want to kind of come up strong, like like if you want to do it right, do it your damn self. And I think that's what they're gonna take this mentality going forward.
so that being said, a Metroid game that's coming out soon, but not made in house by Nintendo, is a remake of Metroid 2, made for the 3DS, which came out of left field. No one saw that coming.
No, Nintendo had a bunch of things I didn't see coming. This is one of the things where, for me, with getting the Switch, I feel like I don't lean to my 3DS as much because, kind of serves the same purpose a little bit. I'm still scared to take my Switch out because if I drop that once, I'm fucking screwed. But
Yeah, until 3D printing new shells becomes cheap enough and cost effective enough. Like
yeah, until an OtterBox comes out for the Nintendo Switch, I'm super nervous. In the meantime, though, it's great at home. It's great in bed.
yeah,
But yeah, no, this remake seems remake question mark.
yeah. It is a I think remake would be the right word to use. It is essentially the core of Metroid Prime 2, or not Metroid 2, the one that was made for the Game Boy, but they've done some changes. But the story and the general locations are the same.
Yeah.
Beyond that, they've done some nice enhancements to the game. It looks like they added some like cinematic moments when you do a really cool thing, and it looks like it's gonna be a cool game. I'm definitely going to get it. I'm definitely going to play it. There were some people who were nervous because the studio that made it also had done like a remake of Castlevania for Konami, and from what I understand, that game was pretty bad. But once again, Nintendo's really protective of its IPs, so I don't think that they're going to allow a bad game to get released.
I mean, I don't think it's changed that the Nintendo seal of approval is worth it's worth a ton. Like that's not a small thing to have.
Especially as it pertains to their own IP. Like,
oh, of course. I want to be very mindful about coming across as a Nintendo fanboy in these conversations. Like, I love Nintendo to death. I don't want to give them I don't want to be overly positive about them. But that being said, this conference for them was a really great call. Like, this game coming out in a couple months?
Yeah.
Like that?
No, it's coming up. It's definitely coming out before the end of the year because they wanted to do it as their sort of celebration of Samus's birthday.
Yeah, right. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be fantastic. Hopefully, anyway. Again, nothing unless. Was that on the show floor? If it was, I couldn't get to it because Nintendo's show floor was crowded as hell.
From what I understand,
it was nuts. I'll if you can find pictures, look at pictures. If not, I can put pictures on the internet and you can look at those. But man, it was insane. Good Lord.
So yeah, after Samus Returns, they showed off the game that everybody was anticipating, everyone wanted to see and know about. Of course, I'm talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Xenoblade Chronicles 1, real fucking good.
Yes, that was a fantastic game.
Looks real damn good too.
It looks really good, and I'm joking when I'm saying that was the game everyone was waiting for, but it looked like a decent. What I saw of the actual gameplay, it looks like it's going to be a solid Japanese RPG. What they showed off in the video for the conference, the trailer that they had for it, was basically take aspects from every single generic RPG you could think of and just slam them together into a trailer, and you have the trailer for Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yeah, it's
a lot of action-y poses during battle. They even had a Sephiroth style scene with a guy turning around in flames. The thing now, the composer for the game was the same person that did a lot of the music for Chrono Trigger. That being said, the music that's in the trailer is definitely super Chrono Trigger-esque.
Right.
So yeah.
No, this one I'm just flat out excited for. I love a good RPG. JRPGs typically aren't my jam, but Xenoblade Chronicles has my heart a little bit. If I'm gonna like, if you're gonna hold a gun to my head, like pick a JRPG, Xenoblade, end of the discussion.
Fair enough. And so to the actual like showcase, the major thing that Nintendo was there to show off to everyone was Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh Lord,
Super Mario Odyssey, the return to form of the N64 style Super Mario game, where it is legit. You are in this world, wandering around, just except instead of it being you going to paintings, it's more like you're traveling to different locations, but the entire game is like a sandbox where you figure out what the missions are. Like,
I don't mind that.
no,
Like,
I don't mind that at all. I think it's cool seeing Nintendo make now 2 sandbox style games for the Switch, but they're both also very different games.
I remember when I was very young, my father would play, or he'd sit next to me when I played Super Mario 64, and you'd always, there's a 6 stars per level, and you would always get the very, like, the title of the star was the only hint you had.
Right.
And he would just kind of wonder, like, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? And he wasn't supposed to curse in front of me, but he's, he's frustrated, and I'm 6. Like, what am I supposed to do about it? And it's one of those, it feels like one of those sort of games where it's like you just kind of have this idea and you just kind of explore the world. And exploring the world as Mario seems like it's the game I've always wanted. And I'm glad they're kind of doing a callback to Mario 64.
Right.
Which is super great.
And we haven't even brought up the fact that like the big killer thing about this game, the thing that got everyone really excited, is essentially Mario can possess pretty much anything in the world. Like, he can throw his ghost hat thing at anything that's not already wearing a hat and take it over.
That's like, it's a gimmick that on its face feels like it shouldn't fit, but good Lord, is it just not. The number of doors it opens up is insanity. And it's not like, I feel like a lot of people are criticizing, like, well, that's not a Mario ability. Like, it's not the first time he's done that in video games at all.
Well,
not even a little bit.
I think the theme of this game is look at all the hats that Mario has worn.
Pretty much.
Because from what they showed off in the trailer, the game actively is doing callbacks to pretty much every game Mario has appeared in theme. Like, there's going to be a bunch of different outfits for Mario. Every single one of them is a throwback to another game that Mario has been in. From what I understand, he's even going to be able to wear like the Super Mario Maker construction outfit. Like, like, it might not change his personal abilities, but instead of like collecting abilities, now instead what you do is you just take over a creature that has those abilities and do that. And I think it makes sense when you think about it from that perspective.
Right. It's, again, like, I feel like with every thematic, Nintendo says, like, hey, like, Mario hasn't done this yet, and let's have him do this. And it works. Like, it happened with Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2 for the Wii. It happened kind of with 3D World. And 3D World is just for the Wii U, which is just a nice throwback to, like, sort of traditional Mario, kind of.
Right.
It was a great set of levels, but there's nothing too fancy about it. And this game is like, we're going to go hard. Like, we're going to push Mario's design limits to a T. Like, I feel really bad for the Mario designers and the capacity that they had to come up with that crap and, like, satisfy Miyamoto. Like, good Lord. That'd be difficult.
Yeah. No, and, like, what they have, this is going to be, like, the major... It's the best follow-up you could possibly have to, once you're done playing Breath of the Wild, we've got this for you. Like,
pretty much. Like, and as someone who's not done with Breath of the Wild, like, can't wait to get my hands on it and then drop up Breath of the Wild. Not that I hate Breath of the Wild, but like, Super Mario Odyssey though, like, let's talk. Like, that's a great game.
You want people to buy a Nintendo console, you release a major Mario title. Like
real talk, between Odyssey, between Splatoon 2, ARMS, which has already come out.
I just got Mario Kart 8 again.
And Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And even Mario Rabbids, like, that's a lot of first-party content to take in immediately, which is great. I'm going to play all of that.
Yeah.
Like, they're stepping up hard, because I feel like they took the criticism of the Wii U. It's like, well, there's nothing out. It's like, all right, listen, motherfuckers, like we know what we're doing, all right.
Well,
and
yeah,
that's basically what it was.
they cut him off at the pass when they announced the Switch and the release date and all that, and they were also like, oh, by the way, Breath of the Wild is going to be day one. That immediately got rid of all those people like, oh, wait till Zelda comes out before you. You're getting this day one.
There you are. And that's why people are still clamoring. Like, Switches are not available still.
Yeah, and in the time since it's been out, I have gone to a store once and seen Switches that were available there. I bet you if I went back an hour later, they would not.
Oh yeah, it's one of those like you get lucky. Like that's how I got my Switch. Like my wife found it for me. She just got lucky. Called the store. It's like, yeah, we have it, and she raced down, got it, and that was the end of the story. Like as much as I absolutely hate that Nintendo like keeps this weird like supply and demand bullshit going on, like people want the damn Switch, and it's working.
Yeah. Speaking of your wife, she's been very nice in letting you talk to me for so long. But
Yes, true.
I feel like we should probably wrap up here. Are there any last thoughts that you have about E3 as a whole? Anything that you would like to see different that you haven't mentioned yet, or any other games that popped out for you?
So let's talk about the E3 as a general notion, being in person, to the listeners. I'll say this politely. General Expo Pass, not worth it, honestly. Not so much for the expenses part of it, but it's one of those like you'll be in line for 2.5 hours, somewhere between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours on average per game, which doesn't seem too bad. But let me contrast this. The day after E3, my wife and I went to Universal Studios and did a lot of the rides there. But that felt way better because the line kept moving. Because the rides are only, like 2 minutes, roughly?
Right.
A minute and a half?
And theme parks are much better at giving you the pre-ride experience before you actually get into the ride.
Like, my pre-ride, my quote-unquote pre-ride experience for E3 was sitting on a wall, just kind of looking at my cell phone the entire time for 8 hours until I got to a game. And you didn't move until like 20 minutes at a time, and you only moved like 8 people at a time.
Oh God!
And so it's frustrating. It's not really there. If you're industry, don't pretend that you're important. I'm gonna say that politely. Like just because you have an industry badge does not mean you're worthwhile. And as we discussed earlier in the show, like same thing with media. Like unless your media is like super legit and you are really charismatic and beautiful, maybe not dump all your eggs and think this is going to be your time. Like I say that harshly but politely. Like I don't want you to kind of lose money and hope thinking that this is going to be the thing you want to do. But that said, if you can handle crowds and you want to be the first person to play some of the games that are coming out this year, one game we didn't talk about but I'm really looking forward to is Ni no Kuni 2.
Yes.
I played the fucking shit out of that and I love it to death. I can't wait to play that because I got my hand on the game. You get to see a lot of cool stuff that's coming up without you don't have to buy into the hype yourself. You get to create it yourself. Like, is this what you want to believe in or not? And that's really nice. You get to kind of separate the bullshit and determine if this is your thing or not, which is great. So it just depends. It really depends if that's your thing or not. Plus, staying in LA is expensive.
Yeah.
Just bear that in mind. Also, LA is dirty. If Los Angeles could just kind of clean up their city a little bit, that'd be lovely. Besides that, though, not a lot else as far as games that I want to talk about. No, it was just a good conference. I think out of all the E3s, it was probably one of the stronger years for sure.
All right.
I actually do agree with that. Yeah, it's just, despite my grievances and despite my kind of skepticism, I walked away overall happy. But that's also because I got interviewed by 2, international countries for their public television. So
yeah,
I did well.
It sounds like you had the dream situation.
Pretty damn much. Like, I couldn't ask for more. So,
Ben, I'm going to let you go.
Yes.
To everyone else out there, if you want to go to E3, go to E3. Don't let us dissuade you or whatever. But I personally believe that where we're at right now, Streaming online, it gives you a good enough situation for getting the content. If you really just have to play the games, though, fine.
That's a bit like if you're absolutely dying to do it, then please go. Like the games are great. I honestly believe they're great, and I don't think they're gonna like mislead you or anything of the sort. You just need to be with anything else in life, like put your skepticism hat on and just make sure that you're, being. There's a lot of sensory overload, and you just want to. You don't want to. How can I word this properly? You really want to be mindful of being soaked into the hype versus like, hey, like I'm actually having a good time in playing this game versus like I'm supposed to have a good time because I paid a lot of money to be here and that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Ben, I'll talk to you later.
Yes, absolutely. It's been fun. Glad I get to be on another podcast.
Yeah.
I will be back shortly on another podcast sometime.
I'll look forward to that. Apologize to Dawn for me.
Oh, of course. I mean, I'll deal with the repercussions of that. Don't you worry. She ain't mad at you. I'll tell you that.
All right.
So
have a good night.